I'm Allison Vesterfelt, reading a brief excerpt from my book, Packing Light, Thoughts on Living Life with Less Baggage, published by Moody Publishers. A special kind of simplicity happens when you leave behind all things unnecessary, and even some necessary ones. There's no noise, no chaotic motion, just silence. All of a sudden, feelings start to rise to the surface you didn't even know you had. You start to think thoughts you didn't realize you were capable of thinking. There's an incredible clarity of mind that comes to you when you leave everything comfortable behind. As we were camping, I talked to God. The chaos of the previous days faded away and the quiet pressed in, and so did Jesus. I guess that's what happens when we leave behind all of our extras to venture out into the big, bad, wild, chaotic world. We find the one who made it, the one who made us. It felt good to sit with him, like it does to sit with a close friend. It felt comfortable, and the conversation flowed the way it would if we were sitting on a couch together, feet tucked up underneath of us with cups of coffee in hand. But it also felt overwhelming. All the feelings I had kept at bay in the past few weeks, hidden behind new cities, new friends, text messages, status updates, and blog posts, suddenly came rushing over me. It was like looking in a mirror. I could see myself. I was scared. It wasn't fair that I was scared. After all, what reason did I have to be afraid? God had provided for us. Every time we had needed something, our need had been met. We had never been stranded. But no matter how much I looked back, I couldn't help but be afraid of what was to come. Was God the kind of God to lead his kids toward disaster without offering them a way out? He hadn't done that so far, but who was to say he wouldn't? Could I trust him? I cried tears of embarrassment as I told God I wanted to trust him. I wanted to have faith that he was going to carry us through this journey, but I was having a hard time. I looked out over the mountains and thought how they must have formed over hundreds of years, tectonic plates smashing into each other, one big, painful push at a time. I thought about the earthquakes that must have taken place so I could sit here, enjoying the way these creatures, which were alive in their own way, were jetting up from the horizon. I wondered if life was like this. I wanted to make something beautiful, to be something beautiful. As scared as I was of the chaos and the unknown, I was equally scared of the mundane and predictable. In fact, I felt caught between the two. Which one was I supposed to choose? I was desperate for a roadmap, something concrete and definitive that would answer all these questions. At the same time, I worried I would take all the right turns, make all the right steps, follow all the directions, and at the end would find out the terrain of my life was meaningless and boring. I told God all of this, and he just listened. Sometimes his most important answers come in the silence. I asked him to help me discover what he wanted me to write about, in a way that acknowledged he probably wouldn't answer in any concrete sense. I prayed he would whisper words to me, and I promised I would commit them to paper. Is that what it means to be a Christian writer? I asked God. Because if it is, that's the kind of writer I want to be. I want to be the kind of writer who is awake to the realities of heaven, but engaged in the realities of this world. I pictured myself throwing a lasso around the feeling I had right now, in the middle of nowhere, and dragging it with me back to civilization. That's what I hoped I could do with words. I hoped I could invite people into realities they had never experienced. I hoped I could wake them up to a life they wanted to be living. I would give up anything to keep this feeling, the feeling of being close with him. That's packing light, I felt him whisper, but it wasn't so much of a voice as it was a deep reassurance from somewhere inside myself. I sat on that ridge and looked out over the mountains, and for the first time in my life I realized God was for me. He was on my side. He wasn't trying to pull the wool over my eyes or play some cosmic game of hide and seek. He wasn't trying to trick me into following him. He wasn't trying to force me. He was here. He was available. He was pursuing me. And all the things I had worried about before, our bank account, our luggage, getting a new car, our credit scores, everything just started to fade into the background. Everything was going to be okay. I knew it. He loved me. He loved me. He loved me. That was all that mattered.